Hello everybody, I'm Roxy, this is Chaotic Bibliophile, and today we're going to settle once and for all just how cool I am, or not. Honestly, I should be filming and editing the Booktube Prize wrap-up for round 2. I also have a really fun TBR video that I filmed with Danny that I can't wait to share with you. Plus, I should probably get started on the wrap-ups for May because there are 3 of them, I think. Springathon from 1900s to 1950s and the general May wrap-up, and I am doing none of those things. Basically because this week is going to be intense and I don't have a lot of time to edit. So I thought I would come at you with this more chill, more casual video. So I found this article on LitHub that will of course be linked down below so you can check it out. It's by Emily Temple and she explains there all the data she used and how she approached it. But it's basically the, I want to say 100 most discussed books on the internet. And as someone who discusses books on the internet, I was curious to see if I had read some of these. And actually, I think I've read a lot of them. A lot of them are classics. And I think it's interesting because it seems sometimes like there are only a few books that are talked about all the time on the internet, no matter the platform. But when you think about it, that is so seasonal. We talk about classics all the time. There's a resurgence of interest in certain books every once in a while. And I think that speaks to the enduring power of classics, and I love it. So let's just get started. And of course, comment down below if you've read any of these books, if you're surprised that any of these books are on the list. Just going to name the books. I'm not going to summarize them, but I am going to provide some of my enthusiasm or hatred for these books. Without further ado, let's begin. Number 1 is George Orwell's 1984. Fabulous book. I really like George Orwell. I think it's a book that is as relevant as ever. Recommended. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. I have not read this yet, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am thinking about starting it soon. Then Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Read it. Not my favorite play, but I really appreciate some of the monologues. One of those plays that I read and I didn't like too much. But then I saw it live. I saw the Globes production in 2000. Michelle Terry was Hamlet and it was fantastic. Then we have Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. I assume this is half Jane Austenites loving the book and also like memes, all the memes. I really like it. It's not my favorite Austen, but I think it's really good. Then J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, which I haven't read, but I plan to once again. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, which I have read. I read it way too young. I need to reread it. Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House in the Big Woods. I am probably never going to read that one. Then Michelle Obama's Becoming. Very, very interesting and very, very high. I understand you may love Michelle Obama, but if you tell me that book is good, you are lying. It has its moments. I especially appreciated when Lin-Manuel Miranda came into the picture at the very end, but it's very slow and it's just not that good. Let's be honest, it's not that good. I'm sorry. She seems like a lovely woman, but J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. You know I love Harry Potter, so yes. Herman Melville's Moby Dick. I have read this. I read it last year and I loved it. Then Henry David Thoreau's Walden, which I'm supposed to have read last year and then again this year, and I haven't read it yet. Then E.L. James' 50 Shades of Grey. Have you read this? I have not, but I have done that thing where you scroll, well, in my case it was a scroll, to a random page and you read it aloud and you try not to laugh. I played that, so I guess that kind of counts. And then related to that, Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto. Because you know, you think 50 Shades of Grey, you immediately go communism. I was going to make a neoliberalism joke there, but haven't we suffered through enough this year? Anyways, I haven't yet. I've read only excerpts, but I want to read it sometime. Same with The Republic by Plato. I have read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë. I am not the biggest fan I understand it's written very well. I like the prose. I don't love the book. Alan Moore's Watchmen, which I am sorry that I haven't read yet. I will eventually. That is my promise to you. Then one of my favorite books of all time, one that I'm kind of sad that is not in a top 5 spot situation, and that is The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald. The Odyssey by Homer, I have read, followed by The Iliad by Homer, which I have not read, followed by Dune by Frank Herbert, which I also haven't read, then Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, which I don't want to read, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, which I have read, which I was a fan of when I was in like 7th grade. Don't judge me. Then The Shining by Stephen King, want to read. Madame Bovary, one of my favorite books of last year. Link down below to my favorite fiction of 2020. I still think about that book all the time. Then Animal Farm by George Orwell, which I know to be better than 1984. But I understand why 1984 is most discussed. Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. Would you be shocked if I told you that I do own that book? I do own it. Will I ever read it? Who knows, but I own it. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and I have not read it. I want to because I really liked the anime growing up, but I don't know if I ever will actually read it. Little Women, I read about half. So in case you don't know, and I learned this by watching Katie from Books and Things, apparently the whole book, that is a bit of a chunker for a children's book, was published in 2 parts. I don't know if in the UK or the US. What I got that said complete and unabridged was part 1. And I read that, but it's not the whole thing. And I was very confused. Now I own an English edition, which is the full thing, but I have not read it in full. That is way too much to say about Little Women without actually discussing Little Women. Then The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, which I have read. Ulysses by James Joyce, of which I've only read certain chapters. One day I will read the entirety of Ulysses, but it's not going to be this year. Definitely not. But it's fun, you know, it's fun. It's slow going, but I think it's more intimidating than the actual act of reading it, but reading it still is a very engaged process. I think more than what we want our reading life to be sometimes. Then The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, very good book. David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which I have not read yet, but I'm hoping to read in October, I think, for Booktober. Then Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, which is due for a reread, but yes. A Promised Land by Barack Obama, which I am not going to read unless I'm forced to. I want to read his other one though. The first one is supposed to be amazing. Then Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The thing with Fahrenheit 451 is that I don't know if I'd like it now because I've heard so much criticism towards the way it's written. I'm a bit shooketh, but I want to reread it. Then Matilda by Roald Dahl, have read it, loved it. The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, surprisingly high. It's endured in the conversation. I have read this, it's not very good, but I am so super excited for his collection of essays. So here's the thing, I am not a John Green literature fan. There are worst YAs out there, but that doesn't make them good. You see what I mean? However, I really appreciate John Green as a human, and I've been saying for years and years that he should come out with a collection of essays, and I would read the shit out of that. And he has! So I'm very excited about that. It's irrelevant to the list, but it's important for me that you know this. Anyways, The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Surprised actually that this is that high up on the list. I mean, it's a classic. I even did the Bibliophile Daily episode on it, linked down below. But I didn't expect it to be so relevant, even above the following book, which is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I feel like not a day goes by without someone saying something either positive or negative about Lolita, so very surprised that it's not higher up there. It's followed by Veronica Roth's Divergent. Yeah, no. I had enough with The Hunger Games. Like, The Hunger Games is good premise, terribly executed, but Divergent sounds not even that, so I'm not going to read that. Then Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, which I have read, but not in its entirety. And honestly, I'm not that keen. If you read it directly in Spanish, you will know. A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare, have read it, loved it. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. You know I'm not big on war books, but I do want to read that one. Then On the Road by Jacques Kerouac, which I have to admit, I had a phase where I loved that book, and I am going to reread it next month for the podcast. Let's see how that has aged in my mind. Then American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Very excited to read more Neil Gaiman. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I know that book exists, but I have zero information about the book. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I do want to read. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, same. The Catcher in the Rye by Salinger, have read, loved it. I know there are a lot of complaints regarding that book, but I think it's really good, and I think the narrative is really good. You might not like Holden, and you might disagree with the philosophy, but the book itself is really well done. Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, which gets a bit more ridiculous every time you read it, but at the same time, you can't deny the accuracy factor. So it hasn't aged that well in terms of the prose, but it's still very good. Read it, it's fun. Then The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Wow, that is a very new non-fiction book, and it's very high up. I do want to read it. It sounds very interesting. Beloved by Toni Morrison, which I have not yet read. It's just, I've read some other Toni Morrison. She is amazing, a genius, but it hurts my heart. Yeah, I need to be in that headspace. War and Peace by Lev Tolstoy, which I have not read, but I am going to read during June, so very excited about that. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, which I just really like the prose and the imagery and the descent to hell, but I understand how problematic that is all I'm saying. The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Yes, I totally went through a Dan Brown phase. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Ugh, one of the best books I read last year. The Adventures of Huck Finn by Mark Twain, haven't read that yet. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, yes, loved it. But I must say, I don't know how it would stand to a reread, because so much of the book rides on you not knowing what happens. But, you know, we'll see. The Divine Comedy by Dante, want to read that. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. Yes, it was the first Roald Dahl that I read, and I was shooketh by the savagery of it all. Good Omens by Neil Gaiman, have read it. I think it's just fine, but because I already love this show so much, I deeply enjoyed it. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, yes, so good. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, yes, I've read that, and it's fun. C.S. Lewis is just so fun. Okay, it is schmaltzy, smarmy, very, very cliche, and very, very old-timey. It's like your granddad is reading to you, and I love that, okay? Then The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, haven't read that yet. The Stranger by Albert Camus, I have read. I really liked it. I don't know if I'd love it as much now, but I really liked it at the time. The Crucible by Arthur Miller, haven't read that one, really need to. The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I have problems with Hemingway, but I admire a lot of his short stories. The Old Man and the Sea could have been a shorter novel, and it would have been the better for it. Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, haven't read it. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, love that fucking book. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, I read it. I wasn't too impressed, so I won't get into it now. But yeah, I didn't love it. The Aeneid by Virgil, haven't read that yet. Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë, have read that. I need to reread it though, because I read it when I was very young, and I think I would get so much more out of it now. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I didn't know this book was such a big deal, but suddenly I bought it at a secondhand shop sale, and I hear about it all the time now, so I think I need to read it. Please comment down below if you've read it and is it good? Watership Down by Richard Adams. I have heard of this, but I don't know anything about it. Then The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I was very bored by it, which is the last thing you would expect. I would give the rest of the tetralogy, I think there are 4, yes. A chance, but yeah, I wasn't that impressed. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, I definitely want to read that. The Road by Cormac McCarthy, I have not read it. I own it. I should get to it. It's just that Cormac McCarthy is so exhausting. He's good, but he's exhausting. And it's relentless violence and misery. Then we have Frederick Douglass's Narrative of Life of Frederick Douglass. I would like to read this. I think it's very interesting. Then Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. I have read it. It's very fun. George Eliot, Middlemarch. Have not read it. Need to read it. It's very good. I always tell this story, but I'll tell it just one more time. So basically, I had to read the first 4 chapters for a narrative class I had in college. And I read the first 4 books. And I was very much enjoying the book. But then I had to reread the first 4 chapters because since we were only focusing on those, the focus was much more intense. And then we moved on to other books and I had to read those. And so I never returned to Middlemarch. But I need to return to Middlemarch because it's really, really good. Then we have Sylvia Plath's Ariel, which I am going to read this month. Then Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, which I feel like I've read, but maybe those were just like adapted versions for children. I need to read the whole thing because I know it's like a satire or something. Then The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, have read it, loved it. Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Look, I enjoy the monologues. I hate the philosophy in it. I mean, not philosophy in general. I got like 200 pages in, but I don't know if I want to read 1,000 pages of that. I think I'm going to try The Fountainhead instead. I mean, I know I disagree with her, but again, those monologues. That is followed by Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I adore that book. I think it's a masterpiece. Orientalism by Edward Said. I have read some excerpts, but not the whole book, I think. I love Edward Said though, and I need to read more by him. Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman, of which I read a lot, but not the whole thing. None of the editions. So I need to. A Brief History of Time, haven't read it yet, but really, really want to. Mouse by Art Spiegelman. I love that graphic novel. It is really, really good. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, I have not yet read. Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. Sadly, I've read it. And it was BookTube's fault. And I still resent BookTube for the money I spent on that book. Then Harriet Beecher Stowe, Uncle Tom's Cabin, haven't read that yet. Khalid Hosseini, The Kite Runner, haven't read it yet. Alexandre Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo, really want to read this. But I want to read it in a very specific edition, and I am not going to read it until I find that edition. Sue me. Then A Time to Kill by John Grisham, zero interest. To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, have read it, really, really enjoyed it. Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery. I appreciate that it exists, and I appreciate it's a very important children's classic, and it's part of a lot of people's reading life, but I feel like it's too late for me. And yeah, I don't own it. And I feel like if I don't even own such a children's classic, shows that I really have zero interest in it. Then Jorge Luis Borges Ficciones, which I've read and I have not gotten along with. Looking for Alaska by John Green, never gonna read that. Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami, which I did enjoy when I read, but it makes me sad thinking that I probably wouldn't like it now. So I don't think I'll ever reread it. Then by Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I feel like it is repeated. I still haven't read it. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I own that, haven't read it, not massively interested. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. I have read that, really enjoyed it. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. Own it, haven't read it yet, but really, really want to. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Really happy it exists, but I'm not going to read it because it's YA. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Yes, I've read it. I loved that book. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if I'll read it. I'm not terribly in the mood for that kind of book at the moment. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which I understand has a lot of flaws, but I think it's really well written and I really enjoyed when I first read it. And you can't deny how influential it was and still is. Stieg Larsson's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I own a battered 50-cent copy of this, and at the time I got it, I promise I meant to read it, but now I just don't think that's going to happen ever. Then I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I am definitely going to read that eventually. The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Again, really want to read that. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, which I sadly read. I feel like we are a group of people who loved Gillian Flynn and then got duped into reading The Girl on the Train. There is no point of comparison aside from both having problematic women narrators. That's the only point of comparison, and the genre. But the qualities, you can't compare really. Then Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, really want to read that soon. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which I love. I think it's so good. So good. The Interpretation of Dreams by Freud. I have read a bit. I think it's good to go to the source if you're going to study psychoanalysis, but at the same time, do you really want to waste time with very outdated theory? I don't know, man. I don't know. Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. So good. So good. P.L. Travers, Mary Poppins. Have not read it. Maybe someday will. I have a friend who really loves Mary Poppins, and I think, yeah, that might be on the table. Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. You know, I appreciate the importance of Bridget Jones' Diary as a classic, but I don't love the movie. I don't think I've ever seen it all the way through, and I don't even know if I want to. Therefore, I don't even know if I want to read the book. Like, I read The Devil Wears Prada because I love the movie so much. The book is garbage, but at least I love the movie. I don't think that is going to happen here. Then we have Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which I really should get to, but I haven't yet. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, really, really good. I love how I said that as if The Secret History needs my endorsement, but what can I say? It's good. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, want to read. Stoner, John Williams. Oh, I love the book. I understand all the possible criticisms, but it's so well written and it touches upon my little academic heart. I just love Stoner. I need to read more John Williams. Life of Pi by Jan Martel, haven't read it yet. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, haven't read it yet. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have read that book. The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I have read that. Really liked it at the time. Neuromancer by William Gibson, haven't read it yet. Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, love that book. Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. I think I don't know that one. The Trial by Franz Kafka is due for a reread, but yeah. Their Eyes Were Watching God, own it. Have I read it yet? No. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. I have read that. I have actually studied it and read it on my own too. I really, really like it. Then The Help by Catherine Stockett. I have read it. I liked it at the time, but I understand all the criticisms that it has received. I read it when I was still in high school, I want to say. And, you know, I wasn't actively reading in English yet, I think. I was like starting to. It was one of those books, you know, those airport books. But I remember liking it and liking the movie. But once again, I understand why it hasn't aged well. Then Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. Haven't read it yet. Want to. Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Again, haven't read it yet, but want to. The Neapolitan Novels by Elena Ferrante. I own the first one. I am going to give it a shot, but I don't know that I'll love it, you know? I've heard a lot of very valid criticism towards it. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Definitely want to read that one. Roots by Alex Haley. I feel like I know the Alex Haley name. I don't remember Roots. Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I want to read that one, but I don't know if I'm going to start with that one with her. I've only read a couple of short stories by her, and I think Half a Yellow Sun is actually her most lauded one. Like, Americanah is more well known, but Half a Yellow Sun is supposed to be her best. So I may start with that one. Freedom by Jonathan Franzen, which I have read. It's really, really good. It's really, really fun. I'm surprised it's here. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Again, haven't read it yet, but really want to. The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. I've read excerpts from it. It's really good. I really want to read it. Atonement by Ian McEwan, which I was so underwhelmed with. Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, need to read that. The Home and the World by Rabindranath Tagore, that one I didn't know about. In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, I want to at least read Swan's Way this year. The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, haven't read it yet, might get to it soon-ish. The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, haven't read it yet, but want to. Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, jury's still out. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, I've heard of that, but I don't know. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick? Yes, I read it. I thought it was so good. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I had lots of fun. I just loved the whole premise and I thought it was well done. Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, wanna read that. Native Son by Richard Wright, wanna read that as well. Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, want to read that as well. Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell, own that one. I guess I want to read it. It's such a contemporary classic, but I have been less than impressed by other David Mitchell that I read. So I don't know, but I'll give it a shot. 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup, haven't read it yet, but want to. Call Me by Your Name by Andre Aciman. I was deeply unimpressed by the book. I really liked the movie, but the book, okay, here's the thing. I shouldn't be extending myself more because I've been filming for a long time. But here's the thing with the film. The film removed every stupid thing from the book and made it like a fun coming of age film and gives the sensation that, okay, this is a summer, it happens, it's life, it's bittersweet. And then the book is basically never move on from your first love ever. And it has so many problems with it, and it's not even that well written, and I don't know why it's so popular, quite honestly. Underworld by Don DeLeo, I haven't read Don DeLeo yet, but I'm going to start with White Noise. Lady Chatterley's Lover by Lawrence, I haven't read it yet, but want to. Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, which is a play, but it's really good. The Sun and the Fury by William Faulkner, I have not read that one yet, but really want to. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, which I recently wrapped up. I don't remember, I think it was April. I'm going to link it down below. It's so good. Then Sula by Toni Morrison. Congrats to Toni Morrison because she is talked about. Very deserving of it, by the way. The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, which I am currently reading. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy, which I'm going to read eventually. 100 Years of Solitude, which is one of the greatest books ever written and definitely one of the greatest masterpieces in the Spanish language, and you should definitely read it. Then The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, I really want to read that one as well. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, which I have read. Really good, but as I said, exhausting. All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque. I really need to read that as well. Disgrace, Coetzee, haven't read it yet, want to. The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, I have read that one. Liked it, was very confused by it, but yeah, it was alright. The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, which I hope to read soon. Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, which again, I am going to read eventually. A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Surprised to see that in there. I am going to read that, yes, eventually. I enjoyed his other one, Rules of Civility. I thought it was quite good. I actually don't know why that isn't on this list, but yeah. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. Yes to all James Baldwin. Kitchen by Mayanana Yoshimoto. I had mixed feelings, but I want to read more by Yoshimoto. The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, which, you know, it's not my genre, but I do want to read Raymond Chandler. Then Juna Barnes' Nightwood, which I wanted to love, and I thought it was just alright. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt. Yes, I have read that. It's good. I really enjoyed it. I want to read the sequel and the sequel to the sequel. The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. Not yet, but want to. Middlesex by Jeffrey Gendis. I really like that book. Even when I read it, I thought the ending was too rushed, but the epicness of the family tale I really loved. I don't know if I'll ever reread it so I can give you a more cognizant review, because I did read it when I was just starting to read contemporary serious literature as a child, I mean. So I wouldn't know, but I was very impressed when I read it. Then The Five People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. I've heard a lot about this book in my life, but I don't know. Is it good? Should I read it? Please let me know. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I am going to read that one. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. I didn't know about that one. Sounds interesting. Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. Probably not going to read that one. The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. Do want to read that one. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. Want to read that one as well. As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. Yes, want to read that. 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. I can't talk more about how I have had a tortured relationship with Bolaño, but I'm still going to give him some shots. You know all that already. Hunger by Roxane Gay. Want to read that. Brideship Revisited, Evelyn Waugh. It was alright. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I respect Le Guin a lot, but it just doesn't sound like my cup of tea. White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Want to read that one. The House on Mango Street. Really good by Sandra Cisnero. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. Haven't read it yet. White Sargasso Sea. Need to read. Haven't yet by John Rees. The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. Should I read that? Please do let me know. The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. That is a very famous book, and I don't know if I want to read it. So let me know if it is worth the time. I don't know. What is it? Is it good? Let me know. Howard's End by Forster. Want to read that. Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. Want to read that. Passing by Nella Larsen, which I need to reread, but I didn't love. I was very disappointed. The Red and the Black by Stendhal, maybe sometime. Gilead by Marilyn Robinson, definitely want to read that. The Autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. And Malcolm X, that's why I knew Alex Haley. It's the same Alex Haley, right? The one who wrote Roots? Yes? Eventually, yes. Notes of a Native Son, soon, by James Baldwin. Peter and Wendy by J.M. Barrie. No, I've only read Peter Pan, but want to read that one as well. The English Patient, haven't read it yet. A Confederacy of Dunes, Sis, I want to read eventually. Same with My Antonia and Invisible Cities. I don't know about Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. I don't know. Then The Sea by Iris Murdoch, definitely yes. The Talented Mr. Ripley, definitely yes. The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, so good. It is really one of those classics that you do need to read, and it is as good as they say. I think most of her bibliography isn't up to this first effort, but it's really good, so you should definitely read it. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, oh, so good. How Stella Got Her Groove Back by Terry McMillan. I know that book, but it's like a children's book, no? Maybe I'm really, really wrong. I don't know. Please let me know. Kafka on the Shore, once again. That book haunts me. The Bloody Chamber, I want to read. Don DeLeo, White Noise, want to read. A.S. Byatt, Possession, want to read. I mean, I've read and I really, really enjoyed. American Pastoral by Philip Roth. Honestly, I don't know if I'll ever read Philip Roth. That is the truth. But, you know, never say never with those things. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. Again, I don't know if I'll read it. The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. Same thing. Absalom. If I like the other Faulkner, then yes. Winesburg, Ohio by Sherwood Anderson. I really want to read Sherwood Anderson. I don't know why. I feel like we'll connect. The Interpretative Maladies. Yes, I really want to read Jhumpa Lahiri. A Good Man is Hard to Find. I've only read the title story. I need to read the rest of the collection. Housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson. Not yet. Kindred by Butler. Not yet. Oh Pioneers by Willa Cather. I have read that one. It's really good. The Narrative of Sojourner Truth by Sojourner Truth. Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. I'll read that eventually. We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which is not my favorite thing by Shirley Jackson, but it's fun. A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. I'm actually going to participate on a read-along of that in July and August, I want to say. So I'm very excited. It's a huge book. Then Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. I'll get to it eventually. Bonfire of the Vanities, same thing. Cain by Jane Toomer. The Shadow of the Wind. I do own it, but I haven't read it yet. The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Want to read it eventually. Go Tell It on the Mountain. Yes, please. A Visit from the Goon Squad. I do want to read that. The Plot Against America. Same thing about Philip Roth. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy by Joel Le Carré. Eventually, I'm not in a hurry. I'm not like super into spy novels and all that stuff, but I'm open to it, let's say. Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, which I technically haven't DNF'd, but I have kind of DNF'd. Prep by Curtis Sittenfeld. I don't know, but is it a cooking memoir? Because the other option is Portner's Complaint, same thing. Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, which I haven't read yet, but I want to. I know Leslie Marmon Silko because I think I've even done like the Bibliophile Daily episode on her. Then Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates, same. Blindness by Saramago, again, same. The Lover by Margaret Dura, same. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Really want to read it. I don't know why I haven't read more Carson McCullers, because I read The Ballad of the Sad Cafe, like the whole collection. It was so good. I need to read more by her. How many more books do we have to go? I hope we are finishing, because I've actually been filming for more than expected. Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. No idea. Slouching Towards Bedlam by John Didion, one of my all-time favorites. Need to reread it once again. A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius by Dave Eggers. Want to read that one. What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. So good. Carver is one of those authors that you hear about all the time, but when I actually read him, he was that good. Then Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Susan. I really want to read that as well. Senna, The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I have that. Have I read it? No, it's very big. I am going to read it eventually. The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. I have read that one. It's really good. Pilgrims at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. Really want to read that one. Love Medicine by Louise Erdrich. Again, really want to read that one. The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Genedis. Yes, I own that. I need to read it. And then Rudolfo Anaya, Bless Me Ultima. I hadn't heard about that one. Sounds interesting. Maggie Nelson's Bluets. Surprised that it's on this list, but it's really fun. I read it a couple of years ago. I thought it was good. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Want to read that by Michael Chabon or Chabon. Jesus' Son by Dennis Johnson. I read Train Dreams, loved it. So I really need to get to this one as well. Two more Dennis Johnson, basically. A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. So good. So good. And then Edwidge Danny Cat Breath Eyes Memory. No idea. Samuel R. Delany Dahlgren. Okay. Edward P. Jones, The Known World. No idea. Okay, did you enjoy this video of me just like throwing random titles at you? Well, they're not random. They are the most discussed books on the internet. Let's tally up, shall we? This is the number of books that I have read. This is the number of books that I own but haven't read. This is the number of books that made me go, oh, I really want to read that. This is the number of books that I really don't want to read, or that I don't think I will ever get to, or I am sort of unsure. And finally, this is the number of books that I didn't know about. So yeah, that was interesting. I think more than anything about my hipness, this list speaks to the enduring quality of classics. Clearly, the internet is still discussing them and reading them. That's awesome. So again, if you want to check out the list, it will be linked down below. And if you want to check out something similar that I'm doing with the Rory Gilmore challenge, which is not the same as the Gilmore Girls novel pairings thing that I'm still doing on this channel. Promise, it's coming. The second video is coming. Something like this I'm doing regularly with the Rory Gilmore challenge, so you can also check that down below. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please give a thumbs up, please subscribe and comment. What do you think about BookTube or Bookstagram or just the internet discussion around books? Do you partake in it? Do you think it's lopsided? Would you like to see more difference of books, or do you enjoy that a lot of people are reading the same book at the same time, because then you get to talk about it? Please, all thoughts and comments can go down below. I'll be looking forward to getting them. See you next time. I promise you, substantial videos are coming. Watership Down by Richard. I've read excerpts.